Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Daily AI Show. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday. And Wednesday means it's news day. So we gather all the best, most important, and exciting, or just fun news about AI from around the world. So before we get started, I want to put it to the cast, to the crew, to the DAS crew. Does anyone have a most exciting bit of news that they're looking to tell all of our wonderful chatters and viewers?
I have stuff that I think is cool. I don't know if it's the most exciting. I have stories that I think were kind of cool that I tripped upon. I mean, I can share one really quick. That this is actually I'm going to give away a little bit of what's going into the newsletter. For those that subscribe to the newsletter, by the way, you can go to dailyishow.com and sign up for that for free. That goes out on Sundays. In there, two of my favorite things to do in there is a did you know as well as a conundrum. I would say the conundrum is number one. I really love putting those together and thinking through conundrums. I just like the idea of them. Anyway, on the did you know side of it, I always look for angles and stuff. And this story came up about new AI cameras. And this is from like yesterday, which can tell if a driver is drunk are unveiled. I'm sorry. Then it's like find out exactly you can spot them because this is the Irish Sun and this is a Irish UK story. So the idea of cameras that can look at cars, I don't think that's new, right? Like yes, we have traffic stop cameras. Right. We have cameras that look at your license plate when
Mhm.
so there's cameras facing us. We're on the car. In the States, I don't think we see it as much as they do in the UK for speed traps. So you definitely have that over there. It's a little bit more wildly seen over there that you might get a speeding ticket for cameras catching you doing over the speed limit. Okay, so they are testing out this idea of using AI enabled cameras, not to judge, jury, and verdict somebody with drunk driving, which is everything really key about some of the quotes that are in this about one of the bosses that was putting this together and stuff. Anyway, what I found interesting about it was they're saying, look, in this particular town and across the board, funding for traffic cops, officers in this part of the UK or Ireland, it has been dwindling for a while. Like we have miles of roads. We can't be everywhere. And so our thought is if there was an officer standing on the side of the road and watched a driver go by, they may go, I got to go investigate that. There's something off about the way they do. They're using their intuition. And I love the way that he explained it in this article, which was to say, this is the expression he gave was like being the officer's nose, meaning like sniffing out something that feels off or whatever. And then what it does is immediately it reaches out to, I can't think of the word I want, a local officer who then goes to the car. If there's reason to pull them over, they do. It's basically just sending that information to other officers. And then there's a normal traffic stop as well as further tests to determine whether there was anything going on that might be DUI or whatever. And I love that they even call out in even this article, probably my favorite thing was like how this person went above and beyond to say, look, I understand people are going to say this is Big Brother. I understand people are going to say like, oh, not in my town or whatever. But his point was like, what does it say here? If people say it's Big Brother, we should be able to make our own decisions. I strongly disagree when it comes to 2 tons of metal when my kids might be in the car coming in the other direction. There are rules of the road and there's a responsibility that comes with the car. And I just love that he talked about it, whatever. It was a cool story and I kind of fell upon it. It was not in my news of the day that I thought I was going to bring up on it. But as I was starting to put together this upcoming week's, this Sunday's newsletter, I came across it. I was like, wow, I really want to bring that up because it's this interesting idea of AI and cameras, and maybe that makes us feel a little uneasy, but also the Australian company that started this, the founder lost somebody to a drunk driving accident. And so that was the impetus to start this process and see if they could produce a technology. I mean, we're seeing more and more police defunding. I'm sure more people are going to have issues with it and say, oh, I don't like people looking at me on the road. But I actually agree with this. And I say, yeah, you know what? Cops can't be finding drunk drivers everywhere. They can't be standing on every intersection watching cars go by. And as long as this isn't putting bias into it, which I think a lot of us would first think about is like, well, what is it pulling out of the car when it looks at somebody drunk driving? And is there going to be a bias to minorities and things like this? But if it's just highlighting it as a potential problem and sending that to the nearest officer so they can go investigate and do their due diligence and everything else that goes through it, I actually think of this as being a really viable solution. They're testing it. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but they're testing to see how it will help. Just thought it was really interesting. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of this world with cameras and AI technology and using algorithms to determine whether something is or is not a problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely going to be a discussion starter, uh, and something that will need a fair amount of attention to. Well, before we go on to the next story, I completely missed the piece, everybody. Today, I'm joined by Beth, Brian, and Andy, and I'm Jyunmi. And, I think, oh man, my brain's still thinking about that, Brian. Okay, I got to shift
Cool
gears.
story. Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
So, all right. On a high note, um, Florida Atlantic University is designing AI to interpret American Sign Language in real time. So, talk about a good use for sure. So they took almost 30,000 images, put that into a model, combining a couple of different deep learning methods, and are able to interpret sign language in real time, which I was like, oh wow, okay. Because we talk about translation a lot, and we talk about transcription and being able to communicate, especially if you're traveling abroad, reading different languages. ASL is another language that can be added to the 200 something languages that are translated and things like that. And I really like how much more communication channels that's going to open up for people. So I thought that was a super interesting story.
I wanted really quick on that one. Don't go past that because I'm curious. I don't know the full story, but I'm curious. This seems like something that can be an app on a phone, right? Andy's talked about this, like put it where people are already using it. And so I'm curious with a phone. I understand that I can probably point my phone at Beth if Beth is doing sign language. And then on my phone, it's going to translate that so I can read that. But of course, that's only one-way communication. Doesn't really help Beth much unless she can read lips. So I wonder if this is going towards like a really easy to use app where I pointed at Beth, Beth does sign language, I see the reader, I speak naturally back to the phone. Maybe Beth picks up some of that from lip reading if she's capable of doing it. I know a lot of people are. But I say naturally back to my phone, and then I turn it around and it has an animation of the sign language back to Beth. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm not sure how this is like, sure. If I only want to understand the person speaking sign language, sure.
Yeah, the main advance that they're talking about in this article I found on Science Daily was that it comes to the ability to read the signs, right? Read the signing, and that's their first step. Yeah. Sure. That's the level that it's at right now. I guess the idea that they're saying is that there hasn't been this kind of interpretation before, and so they're really excited about how to expand upon that. But I completely agree with you. To communicate in said language back to them is probably that next step that they have to do. Having an app, that'd be great. I'd love to see it on the next edition of the glasses.
Just saying in the comments,
because if you can see it and it's it's interpreting for you, and then that can be displayed, or having the take that extra step for your own edification and then show you what response you want, and then reproducing that. I'm sure there's going to be some learning curve there, but yeah, that would be a great next step in making sure that happens.
So I think what happens now with that kind of thing is that it isn't that it signs back to you. It just gives you the words, right? It's it's live closed caption.
True. Yeah.
And the one question that I have, Jyunmi, like, were there deaf people as part of this? Because there's part of this that looks like, wow, we just developed this very cool thing to spy on deaf conversations that we can't participate in. So in the nothing about us without us, I really hope that there were deaf people in this pool. There totally could be. But also I do understand some sign language, and there is like definite culture, like do not eavesdrop, right? Like just because you can doesn't, I mean, like it's the same thing. You wouldn't actually just like walk up to a group of people and obviously be listening in but not participating. So
Yeah, I didn't see any information that specifically called out part of the the study or anything like that. But yes, I agree. Definitely having that level of interaction input is going to be important. Okay, well, I do have a few more ready to go, but Andy, what's the pressing news that you have?
Well, let me, since you called on me, teacher, I'm going to just make a quick comment about lip reading, which is if you were trying to watch the OpenAI Shipmas thing yesterday, you wish that we had the ability to do lip reading because we couldn't get the audio feed to work, as many people couldn't. So anyway, that's just a little side note. What got me excited, just the kid in me, is NVIDIA's Jetson. And I thought that Jyunmi would be hearing about this, but so NVIDIA has a line of small computers, and they've just released a new one that costs $249. That's makes it easier for small companies or hobbyists like me and students to create products that integrate AI functions without being connected to a remote data center. So this is a local edge device, $249. It's called the Aura Nano Super. It doubles the speed and efficiency of the previous device that Jetson had for this kind of application. And you can imagine all the little things that we could do with this. At least I can. When I was a kid, I built Heath kits, like little electronic things before there were transistors. I'm dating myself. So anyway, that it was really fulfilling. And I'm looking forward for all the like hobbyists who have played with, Raspberry Pi and other systems like the Arduino, coding for those little, boards. This Jetson Nano for $250 will let you build AI into local devices.
I like that. I like that a lot. Also, can it be clustered? Can we just keep buying them and adding them together to make a super duper computer for Edge AI?
Well, listen, I'm gonna create my own because I watched a video on that. I watched a guy create a it made announcements. First of all, he added an external solid state drive to it, to like 1 terabyte, to help run the program more efficiently. But then he hooked it up to a camera, and it was announcing cars coming in and out of his driveway, leaving and entering his driveway, and that's how he used it as a first setup. Which got me thinking, look, I mean, everybody keeps talking about facial recognition, and we got Clearview AI, that has, that's been used by the governments and God knows what to facial recognition. I'm just gonna, tinker and make my own, Ring doorbell, and hook it up to this new NVIDIA. And just facial recognition anybody that comes near the porch, and that way if there's any issues, I'll just put it through the Clearview data set, and I'm sure I'll be able to quickly identify whoever the people are. That won't be creepy at all.
Right. And then you add the speaker, and then it tells it says hello, right. Jerry, thank you for visiting. Brian's not here right now, but I'm more than happy to take a message for you.
In all seriousness, this is what I would love to do. That's more silly, right? But all seriousness, this is what I'd love to do. It's almost Christmas, so you got a whole year, right, to develop this. Something that's fun for kids, like that they could walk by, where it's like a phone or like a fast line to Santa type stuff, because you wouldn't need the external. And if you could hook it up and have like voice API and things we're seeing coming out with ChatGPT and sort of put those things together, it seems like you could almost have like that Santa type, interactive, or just elves talking to the kids or something like that, through a device like this, where you could set it up in kind of a cool, more interactive Christmas type display at the house. So that would be fun. Of course, if it goes off the rails, you'll have to have a disclaimer on there that says I'm not responsible for anything the elves may say to your kids. Okay.
Right.
AI.
I mean, it's a different kind of fun, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, don't know about other parents, you know.
Right, of course.
And if we look at what was announced in OpenAI's drop yesterday, that was part of what was announced, and was that real-time speaker component, right? So you could add that. I have to say, the fact that the thing speaking didn't move at all, right? Like, you could even do like little puppet kind of thing that showed when it was doing something. It was just like a really like kind of reindeer, because it was shoved at the front of the thing, and then it was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it was like, "Oh my god!"
It was a hasty demo. Let's put it that way.
Right. That's a 5-minute jury rig job for
It was
sure.
just like, just because you can doesn't mean you should in that context, right? Like, think about that, Brian, before you're like, "Hi, Brian's not here."
I grew up in the 80s, and I can't. Teddy Ruxpin. Listen, I had.
Oh yeah.
I remember people had Teddy Ruxpins, and you know, I want a talking bear like Tombot that they're developing the dog for. Specifically, I think for nursing homes, is sort of it's a lap dog that's AI enabled and things like that. I think there's a lot of implications. We talked about this on other shows about people with anxiety. I've talked about my daughter. I think there's a lot of ways that this could be good. Back to the story, which was the NVIDIA very powerful and also very cheap computer. You know, I mean, at $250, it's really getting into that tinker phase, I think, where there's people who go, I'm willing to pay that to take a shot at building something kind of fun, or like a Raspberry Pi or something like that, but you're getting a lot more power than a Raspberry Pi. So I think it's very cool. I was one of the stories I definitely had here.
It definitely begs the question. I want to see the side-by-side project comparison between that and the Edge AI computing device from Hilo. Because they've been out for a little while now. So I'm assuming NVIDIA, it's like, oh no, we're in every chip space. Doesn't matter, so I would like to see the two of them compared, because even at $250, that is inexpensive. But I think the Hilo is like $100 cheaper than that. So maybe there will be that significant enough of a processing or performance boost. But yeah, that's exciting news. Thank you, Andy. I actually didn't hear about that one, so I'll definitely be taking a look. All right, Beth, did you give us a story yet?
I have not, but I just want to bring up Justin's comment. Excited to see the agricultural use cases for the Jetson with crop and livestock management. Like, there's so many places.
We when we were doing the top 50 American AI companies list, right? That had to come out. One of the big ones to take a look at was an AI in agriculture company. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were designing robots to the level where it was harvesting its own crops. It was managing, identifying, processing, and all that kind of stuff. But yes, Justin, I completely agree. Even if it's just something that a farmer puts up in their sheep enclosures and things like that to count their cattle, their animals, count when they're doing a grain dump into their silos or transporting. I think all of that will be super useful, because all of those are additional costs and have very expensive equipment attached to it.
The one that I've seen a lot,
DIY stuff.
The one I've seen a lot that uses AI and vision is the one that uses the lasers to zap the weeds. So it's weed control in the fields. And I mean, I don't know what the cost is or whatever. I've seen videos of it, so I know it's a functional technology, but it's doing where it puts the squares around, like you see with cars, or if it's identifying people, it's doing that at a high rate as it's going across the crops, and it's identifying them by the shape and size. And if it's a weed, it literally zaps it with a laser and kills it right there. So the whole point of this obviously is lower dependency on pesticides and all this kind of stuff, because it's identifying and knocking it out immediately. And so you look at some of that stuff with like AI and vision and algorithms, and you go, oh yeah, there's probably way more stuff that could be happening. If this is already happening, just imagine what the next 2-3 years looks like with some of these developments. So yeah, I don't know a lot about agriculture, but and farming and stuff, other than watching Clarkson's Farm on Amazon.
I was about to say,
Jeremy Clarkson has taught me about agriculture in a dumb way. But that's
Lamborghini makes
tractors.
whatchamacallit. Oh man, I'm totally
combine tractors.
So anyway, yeah, that's super cool. I mean, there's probably a whole show to be done about that. So yeah.
Okay, so my story is from Liquid AI. And so I'll put on Andy's hat for a second and say that they recently secured a $250 million Series A funding by AMD at a valuation of $2.3 billion. The reason that they're interesting to me is that they are not looking to replicate human neural networks. What they're trying to do, their models are based on the C. elegans worm neural system, which contains 302 neurons and 8,000 synapses. So they are so they're going down in the complexity of the neural network, and the models are 2 to 3 times more efficient than traditional AI systems, requires less computing power and data, which is key. And this is something that could really work for edge AI systems. It can operate without cloud reliance, better suited for edge computing, and like real world applications, consumer electronics, biotech, telecommunications, like all of those things. I find it really interesting when I'm really interested in biomimicry, and I find it really interesting when we start to condense what we are mimicking into something that is just really efficient. And also I initially saw this and was like, ooh, so we're like doing worm organelle things. That's not what we're doing. That's not what this is. But I would have less ick about using worm brains to power things than I do about the human parts to power things, which is still a very big ick for me.
So, okay. All right. Did the article say, or the announcement say, why they chose that framework to mimic? Just, is it they expected so much efficiencies, or was there something intrinsic about that neural network that was what appealed to them?
So it's a liquid foundation model.
Okay.
And so it's specifically not a transformer-based system. So instead of using the human brain's complex structure, it's not a transformer. It's a liquid-based model. And I didn't see anything about like, wow, I really loved worms when I was a little kid kind of thing. I think it was that it had been studied, and it's a very well-known structure, right? Unlike the because it's just 302 neurons, right? So it's you could map it easily in a way that you can't with human stuff right now.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's just a lot more insight and data on that choice. Okay, I mean, that sounds great. I think we've been seeing that trend of specialization models, right? Not only have they gotten smaller, but more about for specific purposes.
Right.
So this sounds like it's moving in that kind of direction.
And the other thing, this isn't news, it's personal news. I watched Kara Swisher interview Jan LeCun for an episode of her on with Kara Swisher podcast. And Jan is... one of Jan's main points is that AI can't be replacing humans until it is smarter than your cat, right? And worms, and that has to do with worldview, right? Like your cat can navigate a sequence of steps to get the thing that you put on the top shelf of the cupboard, and it can extend its claws, right? There's lots of stuff that cats can do in a complex reasoning thing to reach a goal. Worms also, right, can have a rudimentary, I don't know, it seems rudimentary, system of worldview to go somewhere, to have a goal, to go and do something. So yeah, worm AI coming to you.
Worm AI, yeah. Okay. Unless anyone has something they're really chomping at the bit, I got a couple of quick quick shots here. Meta, they updated their Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses because now it has real-time video. So all of those situations that we were talking about, I was like, yeah, can the computer or can the AI describe for me what's happening or translate for me on the fly or anything like that? This is what this is supposed to do. So I'd love to see what some of the initial reactions are, what some reviews and things like that. So if anybody in chat has a pair of Ray-Ban Meta glasses, test it out with the new update and let us know.
So someone did. Nico.
Yeah, wait, hold on. Who said they had it?
Oh, did someone say something?
Yes, Nico.
Somebody said they had the glasses. Yeah, Nico.
Oh, sweet.
Hopefully
okay, let us know.
Well, okay, I'm going to talk about more than Jan LeCun, but it happened last night. He was wearing his glasses and he told the story of giving glasses to farmers in India who were able to look at something that they had a question about, get an answer in their language, right? When they were out roaming or out farming. And that was a very exciting, like, move forward in the world, really great use case, right? So what's happening with this plant? What do I need to do? That information was conveyed in their language and was accurate.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to see that kind of response, and it will only get better from here, right? This is what's the phrase? This is the worst that it'll ever be.
Yep.
I want to jump on Google.
Okay.
Google has been in the news big this past week, and I wanted to pick up on a couple of things that Google did or has been revealed about Google that didn't make the headlines that we discussed about the Gemini 2.0 flash drop and all of the advances of that. But I think we'll do a whole show on that, right? Or we already did a whole show on Gemini. So, okay. Usage rules. All the major AI players have previously had restrictions on what you could use their AI for in the context of human rights. And particularly this applies to whether you can use it in the context of healthcare or employment. And right now, OpenAI doesn't allow you at all to use that for determining whether you're going to employ somebody. But there's no real enforcement mechanism for this, obviously, but it's against their terms and conditions. Google previously had a similar restriction, but they relaxed those this week. So customers can now use Google AI to make decisions in areas that impact someone's rights or well-being, as long as there is a human in the loop. So human oversight has to be included in that. But again, what's the enforcement mechanism for these things? AI is clearly going to be used for these kinds of applications. But Google has opened the gates a little bit here for that kind of application. Moving on, but also about Google, they announced a $20 billion investment for renewable power for data centers. And they're in a partnership with a couple of different companies, TPG as an investor and Intersect Power, which is getting an investment from TPG Rise Climate, that fund, to do this. And Google's making an $800 million equity investment in Intersect Power. What's interesting about this is that These renewable sourced energy systems at the gigawatt scale invested by Google will come online much sooner than the small modular reactors that a lot of startups are working on. Those won't, that's nuclear energy in the small, safer format, but that won't come online until around 2030. That's how long it takes to spin up nuclear. But these renewable energy sources are much faster to deploy. So the first phase will be operational in 2026, just a little over a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, and fully completed for this $20 billion investment by 2027.
And there's
Yeah,
a
that's definitely
report.
a factor.
There's a report that just came out from the International Renewable Energy Agency that said that solar has the cost reduction has come down so much with solar that it's 56% lower than fossil fuel and nuclear alternatives. So it's cheaper and faster and better for the environment. Right? Like
Aha!
I should, yes.
That's a win in the sustainable.
I said that
market.
wrong. It's cheaper, faster, and better for the environment.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's awesome. Because like I was saying, it's certainly a factor in your choice and how fast you can. I guess this is sort of a first to market kind of thing, right? Because if Google can take advantage of these quick turnaround on these power sources, then that means they can get their data centers up and running faster, right? And be able to supply power and hopefully expand those power sources enough to redistribute or contribute back to the grid, lowering energy costs across the board. That's what I would really like to see from it too. No, that's all great news. Okay, well, let's keep the party going with more great news, and let's talk about tiny robots' big impact. This is another science story. All right. So the American Institute of Physics has been studying microbots based on magnetic movement and equipped with a robotic microscrew to treat infertility. So apparently a large percentage of infertility cases happen to do with fallopian tube obstruction, right? So they're designing these microbots to clear obstructions in the tubes. And so I don't see any specific numbers on this yet, because I don't know if it's in trials or whatnot, but the design is there because apparently anywhere from 11 to 67% of female infertility cases has to do with fallopian tube obstruction. And if this microbot can solve that, then that just opens up all of those a lot more options for people to look to having a baby and things like that, which I think is awesome.
So that's really interesting, right? Because like I'm wondering, is that just a less dangerous use? Because a much larger number, I think, of people experience blockages that impact their heart, right? Which seems like a more common use case, but also a more dangerous thing potentially. I'm just super curious, right? Because you've just said you have little like tubes in your body, and we're just gonna like clean them out.
Yeah, I think it's probably a scaling and size development at this point, right? What they'd have to analyze what are the typical kinds of blockages. What can this be safely applied to? I notice it says microbot, not nanobot. So we're not talking about veins and arteries yet, but this is definitely that step forward, to getting to where it's doing a complete flush of your system, so to speak. We've talked about that before.
And Jude is saying colon blockage. Jen would like to know what happens when the bot is done cleaning. But also, I think, Jen, your question is a little confusion about anatomy, because I do not believe that the fallopian tube is going to connect to your colon unless the bot has gone rogue, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, the article that I picked this up from Science Daily didn't go into the specifics of the entire procedure. More more about the solution that this is supposed to be to solve a particular issue. But yes, these are all great questions. I know, Andy, you've asked in the past about power and and motion and stuff like that, and so this one is a magnetic driven. So
it's manipulated from the exterior, but it's small, and I don't know how that. What do you mean by magnetic?
Okay. So it's made from
non-magnetic
photosensitive resin coated with a thin iron layer to give it magnetic properties. By applying an external magnetic field, the robot rotates, generating translational motion that enables it to navigate through a glass channel simulating a fallopian tube.
So
this article is great. It gives you the exact.
It really is. It's autonomous in the sense that it has to be in the presence of a strong magnetic field, but it then can use that field as a source of energy and for articulated movement. That's interesting.
Right, and that might explain how the enter and extraction part of the process as well. So, yeah.
Okay, I have another one.
Okay.
This is on the enterprise side. So one of the largest AI platforms that started out with natural language processing and text analysis and correction is a company called Grammarly. And you probably have never used it, but 40 million people use it every day. Grammarly is a major tool out there, and it's been AI enabled since the time that it was just a grammar checker, basically, using NLP. They acquired, and I don't have the amount that they paid for it, but they acquired or merged with a company called Coda. Now, I'd never heard of Coda before, but it's used by over 50,000 enterprise teams, including the New York Times. And what Coda does is it's a productivity suite that has tools that can basically do RAG on your corporate data systems and then apply AI to those. So now Grammarly, with a really large population of users, and Coda are merging together, and combined, they should be well positioned, it's said, to compete with models like ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot, who also provide primarily AI writing and productivity features in the enterprise, right? That's one of the main application areas. Well, now we have another player to watch, which is the new company. It's probably going to be called Grammarly, but they've acquired Coda and they're merging that functionality into it with a very large user base.
Very cool. Very cool. Brian, Beth, you got anything else?
I like that Anthropic casually dropped on X.
Oh,
it sounds weird. That new research collaboration, best of N jailbreaking. We found a simple general purpose method of jailbreaks, bypasses with the safety features of frontier AI models that works across all text, vision, and audio. That's the whole post. And so there's a whole research paper that goes along with that for Anthropic. And I mean, this is where you go, hey, look, I'm glad that there's good hackers in the world too, because they find the problems, they find the loopholes. But it's just a good reminder that here we are in the last few weeks of 2024, and these AI models are not, impenetrable. They certainly can be jailbroken, and even though things have gotten better, Anthropic is out there as well as others finding ways to completely jailbreak them, which is really, really interesting. So it's that's the short end of it. It's an interesting paper and research paper on what they found. And of course, hopefully that goes towards bringing solutions. The other news story, I don't know, it's not like a news story as in there was an article about it. It's just that everybody's been talking a lot about Sora, obviously, since it was released last Monday. So we've had about a week and a half, and they had some issues with getting it out to everybody. And of course, the servers went down last week and all that good stuff over last week. But what I really want to say about it is like, I have just now seen multiple other models out there that are just superior to Sora. And that's no knock against OpenAI, but 2024 was leading up to this sort of AI video race. 2025 is going to be the year of AI video. And, again, just like we've seen in the past, so all we're doing is repeating history here, where we went on our social medias from just text to text and image to text, image and video, low res video, then super, then high. Now on my phone, pretty much anywhere in the States, I can send Jyunmi a 1080p video across social media if I chose to, through WhatsApps or otherwise. And so we're seeing this repeated through AI as well. And so now we're getting into these first early stages of really reliable, repeatable, in some cases low res, meaning 480, which isn't really low res, but still the lower ends of high def video processors. But from what I've personally seen that Google can do, what we know Runway can do. I just was on Fall earlier, the smaller Fall.ai. That's where I produced images for the newsletter, because I've been using Flux 1.1 Pro. Well, now they have access to 3 or 4, including Kling, different image to video models. And in fact, if you want to see, I created a GIF off of that in one shot. I only had to put one prompt in to get exactly what I wanted. And that'll be in the newsletter if you want to see what I created. You can sign up for that and see it. But I'm just here to say that I like what Sora came out with as far as editing abilities and looping. I think they had some other pieces and parts that are interesting to me. But just in seeing everything else that's been available over the last week or so, I'm really interested to see what happens in really the first half of 2025, because I think we're getting to a point fairly quickly here where you're going to see really good, consistent video pretty quickly through prompts and image to prompts and image to videos and things like that, which is what I use, by the way. I used an image to video with a prompt. And in the stuff I've seen from Google, blows it away. Blows Sora away.
Yeah.
One of the things that's better about Google's system is it's 4K. So the resolution, not only are the features and functions of it better, but it's higher resolution than the other players out there. I
mean, I've seen some videos that I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing, huh? And they're all from Google. So take that the way however you want. But there's some videos that's been produced, and I'm like, yeah, that's at a different level than anything I've personally seen. I'm not saying Runway doesn't have it or whatever, but I heard Ethan Malik say this too with the image in, that he thinks that's the go-to for him for just general image creation over a DALL-E or whatever. I agree. Currently, I'm still waiting. We got 3 days left to see if there's a DALL-E announcement here and the 12 days of OpenAI, which everybody should come back and hang out with us at 1 p.m. today when we do the live announcements for that. We've been doing it every day. So we'll see if there's some update on the image side. We have not seen that yet from OpenAI, but yeah. This is sort of a continuation of what Andy was just saying about Google, what we're talking about yesterday with Google. When I was even seeing it in the comments yesterday too, where people were sort of generally saying, all our awesome people, Nico and Greg and everybody else that's in the comments, saying that hey, I wasn't really on Team Google here, but they're starting to pull me around. And I think that's the bigger conversation there, is that, we're probably, a lot of us are really tool agnostic, and it really is, hey, whatever is the best tool to do it. I can't tell you how many times I changed image generators in 2024. I don't know, 20?
Oh, yeah.
20 different tools, probably 10.
Definitely don't want to just put all of your eggs in one basket for AI tools. And I completely agree. I think 2025 is going to be very focused on video and AI and film and AI and things like that.
Video and voice.
Yeah.
Those are
just integrating all of those multi modalities and things like that. I think the real growth we're going to see, and this is what I'm most excited for, is for the consistency tools, right?
Yes.
So it's easy enough to experiment and then just generate 5, 10, and now up to a minute of video, right? So that's relatively easy. It's relatively easy to take a starting image and generate a video out of it. But to create a cohesive narrative from those images, and to put and have a consistency of images or imagery, whether it be various subjects, objects, things like that, that's extremely difficult to do right now. And that's one of the things that I did like from Sora, is that they were introducing that storyboard feature and trying to
those I think are actually the bigger parts to it.
Yeah. So that's the part I'm really hoping, and I think this upcoming year is going to be focusing on that. Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to do a quick wrap up, because there's no way that everyone has clocked what has happened in the last 7 days. So OpenAI, 12 Days of Christmas AI. This isn't even going to include everything. ChatGPT 01 and 01 Pro, Sora and Canvas. Advanced voice mode now has video and screen sharing, and that's available for some people, not just in the mobile app, but also on desktop-ish for some of those. Also the $200 a month Pro tier, which gives unlimited access. Google announced Gemini 2.0, Deep Research, Project Astra, Project Mariner, and Google is testing AR glasses with translation functions. Apple launched iOS 18.2 with GPT, Image Playground, Genmoji, Image Wand, Visual Intelligence, and writing tools. Meta launched Llama 3.3, which is the 70B model. And it's about like GPT-4 level class, but it can run on your laptop. It also unveiled a suite of new tools from FAIR, including Video Seal, Motivo, and the large concept model. And Meta also quietly backed Musk's lawsuit against OpenAI. Microsoft released 5.4, a compact math-focused AI model. And then they're just like additional. Anthropic released a report from Clio is their research thing, showing that just 6.1% of US companies are like in AI adoption, but where it's being adopted, it has a high impact. Lumen Orbit, we've talked about. That's the company that plans to build data centers in space, raised $250 million in funding. Like, there's just a ton of stuff happening that
just in December.
Just in this week.
Yeah.
Like from last news day to this news day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then Perplexity had they added specialized web searches into their spaces, which seems small, but is actually really, really cool. So Perplexity, I think they also had an update to their Sonar, one of their models, their large models. Sonar, by the way, is the model. It's the native model for Perplexity, but it's also what you're pulling in through the API. So you're usually using one of the 3 Sonar models that are built off of, fine-tuned off of the Llama models. And there's like small, medium, and huge. I can't remember how large and huge or whatever it is, 128 trillion tokens, whatever it's built off or whatever. And then it usually says online after that. So there's been some updates with the Perplexity side of it in the last 7 days as well. Yeah, that's amazing, Beth. Crazy. Not slowing down.
Yeah, okay.
Join us later when something else drops, and it will be news.
Yeah, and let's just hope it's not a Microsoft commercial. Okay, it's like their Apple one. Okay, unless anybody's got any last minute news, that was a beautiful rapid fire there, Beth. Let's wrap it up for today. Thank you everybody for joining us. Yes, every week seems to be just a ton of news. We can never cover everything, but we will mention additional stories, insights, and backgrounds in our newsletter, which you can sign up for at thedailyAIshow.com. All right. And like Beth said, join us in a couple hours because OpenAI has not been. It's always a roller coaster. Either they release something huge or they release something that we can nitpick all day long.
We're also praying for audio, praying for sound.
Oh yes.
It was a fun
the
time.
gremlins were certainly out yesterday. I'll make sure to go on early and test and double check and all of those kinds of things. But we can only do so much. All right, we'll leave it at there. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple hours. If not, we'll see you tomorrow. Aloha.